All right, guys, it's about 9:30 a.m. West Coast time on Monday morning. They're still plowing roads and stuff out here, so I went out and got some breakfast. And we're going to just cover some news stories, so I'm just going to keep working. This is from the Wall Street Journal, deposed Venezuelan President Nicholas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, made their first court appearance Monday morning in New York City after being captured uh, by the American military to face charges related to cocaine trafficking. Through a translator in court, President Maduro declared his innocence, said he is still the president of Venezuela. His wife also entered a not guilty plea. So when after this happened, so overnight, last night, I think, or yesterday, Donald Trump flew back from Mar-a-Lago to Washington, D.C. As he often does, he stuck his head back and was talking to the press, and he said a lot of inflammatory things about a lot of other countries. He said Cuba is on its last legs. Uh, he said that Cuba can only survive with Venezuela, and now Donald Trump is controlling Venezuela. So he's looking to topple Cuba. He made threats against Colombia, and he's made constant threats renewed against Greenland as well. Um, you know, Donald Trump tells us what he's going to do. And I think that since the military carried out this mission with the ruthless efficiency and effectiveness that the American military often operates with, um, you know, I think he's going to get a taste for this. And this is from Bloomberg. A U.S. attack on Greenland would mean the end of NATO. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said that if Donald Trump were to attack the Danish island of Greenland, that would mean the end of the NATO alliance. He said the following: I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says that he wants to attack, when he says that he wants Greenland. But I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established for 80 years since the end of the Second World War. That's terrifying. That's really terrifying. That follows up with a report from the South China Morning Post. Quote, the U.S. is in danger of falling increasingly behind China in 2026 as the Asian giant tightens its grip on drones, battery storage, robots, and manufacturing, not to mention electric cars. Although the number one risk to global stability is the United States under President Donald Trump, the Eurasia Group said on Monday in its closely watched annual forecast of threats, challenges, and hotspots. That report from the Eurasia Group, which I think is Ian Bremmer, from the report, the United States is itself unwinding its own global order. The world's most powerful country is in the throes of a political revolution. It's a revolution of stupid, incompetent people. It's a kakistocracy. A kakistocracy is when you put the most incompetent people in charge of our government. And I think undeniably that's what we're doing. That's what we did in the 2024 election and with the cabinet picks and whatnot that Donald Trump has made since then. Another report from the Wall Street Journal, and this is something that I've been kind of keeping an eye on. President Trump's first year back in office turned the world of white-collar law enforcement and prosecutions upside down. The Justice Department focused on White House priorities such as immigrant enforcement and violent crime, has stepped back from the kinds of complicated investigations into foreign bribery, money laundering, and public corruption that former department leaders often cited among their greatest successes. I mean, what is Donald Trump's current administration, if nothing but foreign bribery, money laundering, and public corruption? That's his entire administration. Going back to the article, along with that shift, administration officials have undone a number of notable Biden-era white-collar prosecutions. In some, the department dropped charges against executives that were pending. In others, Trump has used the pardon power to forgive a string of top company officials charged with or convicted of crimes related to their businesses. The Trump Organization, Trump Crypto, Eric and Don Jr., True Social bought a nuclear fusion company, a merger for $6 billion. So we're starting to get some legal analysis of what the Trump administration did in Venezuela from the website Just Security. Striking Venezuela and abducting its president is clearly a violation of the prohibition of the use of force in Article 2, Section 4 of the UN Charter. That prohibition is the bedrock rule of the international system that separates the rule of law from anarchy, safeguards small states from their more powerful neighbors, and protects civilians from the devastation of war. The consequences of flouting this rule so brazenly are likely to extend well beyond the case of President Maduro's forcible ouster. Columnist Steve Vladek follows up with, a blatantly unlawful use of military force overseas will go unremedied because there's no viable legal pathway to challenge it, and because the one branch of government historically in a position to hold the executive branch accountable in these cases, Congress, has become completely feckless, not just in general, but in pushing back against unlawful unilateral uses of military force specifically. And speaking of the military, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that the military has censured Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona, and has begun the process of reducing his rank in response to statements made by the retired Navy captain about ignoring illegal orders. Members of the military have an obligation under the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, to disobey illegal orders. Mark Kelly and 5 other Democratic members of Congress put out a video a couple months ago reminding members of the military that they are obligated to disobey illegal orders. That made Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and everyone else on the right absolutely lose their mud. And so this is going to be Pete Hegseth taking revenge on Mark Kelly. In that conflict, I'm just saying, I'm putting my money on Mark Kelly, because censuring Mark Kelly begins a legal process. And in that legal process, even within the military, the accused has rights, and the accused can defend themselves. And I'm very much looking forward to Mark Kelly doing that. Here we go. Quote from Trump speaking to reporters on the plane coming back to D.C. Cuba only survives because of Venezuela. Now they won't have that money coming in. Cuba is ready to fall. I don't know how they can hold out. I don't think we need any action. Cool. From Playbook, is Trump serious about attacking other countries? The obvious question is how serious to take all this talk. The received wisdom during the bluster of Trump 1.0 was to take the president seriously, but not literally. But things have changed somewhat in the past year. You think? He bombed Iran. He's bombed Syria. I mean, think of all the things that he's done, and now we get to add Venezuela to that. God. I really, really, really wish that Kamala Harris would have won. We were that close. Trump didn't even get 50% of the vote. He beat her by 1.5 points.